He grew up in Hackney, East London, one of the toughest neighborhoods of its time. He didn't have resources. He didn't have connections. But what he had was something even more powerful: responsibility. When you're young, and you realize the world doesn't owe you anything, that realization can crush you, or it can forge you. Alan chose to be forged. He sold vegetables in the market as a child. That wasn't just about earning money, it was about learning what the world values. Effort, discipline, showing up on time, doing your job, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. And people don't understand what that kind of experience gives you. It gives you pattern recognition. It gives you judgment. It gives you an instinct for survival, and then, eventually, for growth. Most people want the end without paying the price. They want the rewards without the process. But success doesn't work that way. It demands effort, day after day, year after year. Even when no one notices. Especially when no one notices. Alan Sugar started Amstrad with £100. That wasn't a business loan. That wasn't a grant. That was money saved through sacrifice. And that sacrifice was the foundation of everything else. Because when you invest your own pain into something, you protect it. You fight for it. You respect it. People always say, "I can't start, I don't have money." But what they mean is, "I don't have belief." Because belief is the true currency. And he had it. He didn't wait for the perfect moment. He started with what he had, and the act of starting changed who he was. When you act, you move. When you move, you see. When you see, you learn. And when you learn, you evolve. Amstrad wasn't an overnight success. It was built through years of learning, failing, adjusting, and trying again. That's the formula most people run from. But Alan didn't run. He leaned in. Because he understood that value comes from usefulness. And the market always rewards what's useful. He built products that made sense to people. Affordable electronics. Practical machines. And most importantly, he listened. While his competitors were trying to impress investors, Alan was focused on serving customers. That distinction is everything. Serving people is what builds businesses. Not ego. Not image. Service. But he didn't just grow a business. He grew himself. And that's the real story. Because a man who improves himself, relentlessly, persistently, is unstoppable. Not because he's lucky. But because he refuses to be defeated. Discipline was at the center of everything. Waking up early. Paying attention to detail. Not tolerating excuses, from others or himself. That's what separates those who rise from those who remain. Discipline, not desire. And it's not just about working harder. It's about working smarter. Paying attention to what works. Being humble enough to learn. Being courageous enough to act. Being honest enough to admit when you're wrong. Those are the traits of a builder. And Alan Sugar was a builder. The same mindset that got him out of poverty got him into power. And even when he reached the top, he didn't forget where he came from. Because the struggle made him. The discipline made him. The pain made him. That's the part no one wants to hear. That the suffering you avoid is often the very thing that would set you free. The truth is, he didn't have an easier life than you. He had the same limitations, the same doubts, the same world pulling against him. But he didn't let that define him. He chose responsibility. He chose focus. He chose persistence. And those choices, those small, daily choices, compounded into legacy. He didn't just chase money. He built something valuable. And value, real value, lasts longer than trends, longer than markets. It lasts because it matters. If you look at how he built his empire, you'll notice something. He was always one step ahead, not because he was a genius, but because he was paying attention. He studied the market. He studied behavior. He adapted faster than the rest. Adaptability is underrated. Everyone wants certainty. But growth lives in uncertainty. And Alan embraced that. That's what made him dangerous, in the best possible way. There's a lesson here. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start acting as if your future depends on it, because it does. Every minute wasted in self-pity is a minute not spent building your future. Every excuse is a step away from greatness. Every complaint is a brick in the wall of your own prison. Alan didn't complain. He competed. And that made all the difference. The market doesn't care where you come from. It cares what you can deliver. That's the brutal beauty of capitalism. It's harsh, but it's fair. And Alan understood that better than anyone. His rise to becoming a billionaire wasn't luck. It was consequence. A natural outcome of unnatural discipline. It was a result of thousands of unglamorous decisions, made day after day, with no guarantee of success. That's what people miss. They see the man in the suit. They don't see the boy in the market. But the boy made the man. That's why the roots matter. Because if you forget what built you, you'll fall when the storm comes. And storms always come. But Alan wasn't afraid of storms. He'd lived through too many of them. He'd been shaped by them. He welcomed them. Because storms don't just test your structure. They reveal your strength. And if you've built the right foundation, you don't fear the wind. You face it. That's what he did. Time and again. And each time, he grew stronger. More refined. More focused. More resilient. The man who once sold electronics from the back of a van became Lord Sugar, a name that carries weight, not because of money, but because of meaning. He turned nothing into something. Then turned that something into everything. And through it all, he stayed grounded. Grounded in work. In integrity. In reality. He didn't need to pretend to be something he wasn't. Because he had earned the right to be exactly who he was. And that's the reward no one talks about. The internal peace that comes from knowing you fought. You built. You sacrificed. And you won. Not because it was easy. But because you were willing to do what others wouldn't.